Jason is a nationally recognized federal and state government relations consultant and founder of Terrapin, a hybrid AI Web3 government relations startup.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm going to talk about state government, right? But I don't care about state government. Who cares? Right? Nobody cares about your stupid government. Right? That's what I tell everybody. Nobody cares about your stupid policy. Nobody cares about your idea. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares. Right? It's just the truth. It's just the truth, right? Yeah, it's very dark. No, it's the truth. Nobody cares. So we got to make them care, right? We have to make them care. Nobody cared about blockchain 20 years ago. Nobody cared about the internet 40 years ago. Nobody cared about airplanes 100 and something years ago, right? Until people made them care. So we're not going to talk about the strategies that you need to employ or the things that you need to do. We're going to talk about what other states have done. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on at the federal level, but maybe what we can do as a group, right? As an ecosystem, as an industry, as individuals, as companies, organizations, right? Associations, to make people care. And again, I'm not going to there's no silver bullets. There's no, hey, if we do this, Amy Klobuchar is going to love it, right? Because I guarantee you there's a line of bankers with 100 times the money that we can raise, right? That Amy Klobuchar cares far more about than anybody in here, okay? This is the stark reality. So we need to make her care, right? So how does emerging tech, and I'm just going to use a catch-all phrase, Web3 tonight, right? I hope that's okay. Everybody knows what I mean, blockchain, crypto. I loved whoever had the mullet picture. Thank you for that. Jeremy, was that you? That was amazing. Thank you. But we need to unlock the power of Web3. And we can do that in a hyper-partisan environment. It's absolutely possible. It's been done before. It gets done every single day. So what's the state of Web3? So it's pretty easy. It's changing the economy. Who owns iBit? Anybody? Oh, we it? All right, well, it's still only 13 a share. I promise it's worth it. I think it's very, very important. It's going to, and Jeremy made so many good points. I was almost like, I don't need to present because his talk was so good. But it's absolutely important. 8 ETH ETFs just approved, kind of surprisingly, right? The SAB 121 vote that set the stage for a lot of things. FIT 21 in the House of Representatives, the anti-CBDC bill, my old boss Tom, got passed in the House. There is momentum. Elizabeth Warren is singing the praises of this type of technology, right? So the point is that there's absolutely momentum. Political pressure, not only from people like us, right? Not only from BlackRock, right? And maybe we would like to see an organic grassroots movement have more, currency than BlackRock, but guess what? It's BlackRock. Political pressure is changing things. And governments and industry are not so quietly, right, investing billions. They're lobbying on this, right? There's government contracts. I pulled just a quick cursory search and found hundreds of contracts across the federal and state government that could touch blockchain technology. So again, Web3, blockchain, AI, crypto, is changing the status quo. But while you're doing it, right, what are we feeling? We're feeling headwinds. We're feeling resistance, right? A system that has been built for thousands of years is saying, whoa, what are you doing? Right? We're just going through the normal evolutionary steps of policy. There's nothing wrong with it. We should embrace it. Okay, so where's the legislative landscape across the United States? So these are the bills that were either voted on or states, a heat map of states that either introduced or passed, governors vetoed, bills covering blockchain or emerging tech issues across the United States. You'll see some clusters, and we'll get to those in a minute. But Minnesota actually had 4 bills, or 4 things that were covered by the legislature that we'll cover those in a minute. over the last 5 years, at least the last 5 years, here's a heat map of the states. I wrote invested because I think that it's a good way of looking at, hey, not only are we investing time, money, associations, efforts, people's energies, grassroots, right, corporate activity, but we're gonna put our heads in the guillotine here, and we're gonna make a vote. And Minnesota, I don't see anything. I don't know. But some notable use cases, and we'll cover these in a few minutes, but California and North Carolina, I think, are really great models for Minnesota. Florida, this is going to be a sort of a harbinger of things to come in Minnesota. They did a transmitter for digital currency kiosks. Minnesota went the other way. Delaware is now allowing companies to issue stock on the blockchain. Illinois defined crypto as an intangible asset, and Colorado did the Digital Token Act. These are things, I grabbed each of these because they're a little bit different, right? But it's something that Minnesota could be doing, and some things that we could be looking at as a movement on, hey, what should we be getting behind? So what happened in Minnesota? Well, you probably saw some arguing or people fighting on the floor of the House at the end of the legislative session. And it's really just, cutting off debate, right? So Republicans didn't want to end debate, Democrats did. Democrats had the votes, the bill carries. So in the Commerce Bill, the Commerce Appropriations Bill, a very, very, very small, so almost maybe insignificant segment in the Minnesota State Statute to the average person. But Minnesota State Statute 53B covers, and now back me up, John, this covers all cryptocurrencies in Minnesota right now. This line of statute, okay, I called them out, I got it. But that line of statute is how the state of Minnesota looks at cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology in the state of Minnesota. So they amended it this year, right? Pretty big deal, right? Huge deal. Like, let's cheer, let's go, right? Yeah, there you go, let's go, come on. So what did we do? Well, we went the wrong way. We went the opposite way in Florida, and we allowed money transfer. Well, we did define transaction hashes. So that's hey, we were talking definitions bill, Brandon, last year. Absolutely, that's maybe a positive thing. At least now when the legislature knows, when we ask them a question, they know what blockchain is. But basically all we did was we allowed and more highly regulated digital currency kiosks. So crypto ATMs, a couple of other things. We put some extremely onerous and ridiculous, if you read them. I read through the statute, it wasn't very fun, but it was like, must use at least 48-point font, posted in conspicuous spaces, right? Very heavy-handed regulation, exactly the opposite of what we want to see, right? It's basically saying, hey, if you're a business owner and you have the audacity to offer a specific good or product, we're going to have a regulatory body that can put criminal or civil charges against you for not properly displaying the risks of using that product, right? Do we do that on anything else? Do we do that on a car? Maybe cigarettes, maybe chew, I don't know, alcohol, cannabis? I don't see that. Why do we get this treatment, right? This should piss us off. Yeah, this should piss us off. What that does is that creates unnecessary tension. I think that our movement, and I think that people that care about Web3 issues, or that care about this, and government, legislators for sure, absolutely have mission and vision alignment. Now, I know that some people might disagree with me on this one, but I think that the mission and the vision are absolutely aligned. So, a Web3 person, legislative person, person in government, right? The vision should be a global perspective, right? We're trying to build systems to process and unleash data, to unleash the human potential. Our mission, again, should be to tear down barriers, that don't allow people to live either fuller lives or, again, build economies of scale, right? If government was opposed to these two things, we wouldn't have an internet, we wouldn't have anything, we wouldn't have a stock market, right? So it's really, really critical for us to see common ground and commonality with government, right? There's no reason for this tension. And there's no reason for this fear right? These are us. The government is us, right? And I know that the government likes to pretend and tell you that it's not you, right? Government wants you to believe, or at least elected officials want you to believe, that government, your rights are given to you by government. Well, go read the Constitution, that's not what it says, right? So remember that. But we also need to remember that they're not our enemy. They just don't get it. They need to learn. They need to be educated. Their moms, their dads, their brothers and sisters, they're just like us, right? They just are confused. And we like to talk about OGs, right? And I get that, but really some of us have only been OGs for a couple of years, right? And the first time I got pitched, I'll tell you, a year before we started the Congressional Blockchain Caucus, we got the guy that started it and I got a pitch from a company that had created this crazy new thing based on blockchain and crypto, and it was going to do remittance payments because we were on the Foreign Affairs Committee at the time, and we had the Africa Subcommittee. And for those that don't know, remittance payments from U.S. citizens, refugees, immigrants from Africa are absolutely critical to the survival of people overseas. But it's also wrought with fraud. It's also finances terrorism. It does a lot of bad things too. So this company came in with a solution and we said, oh my God, that is the worst idea we've ever heard. And a year later, we launched the Blockchain Caucus, right? So we can't be thinking, okay, just because this person disagrees with me today doesn't mean they won't agree with me tomorrow, right? We should always be looking at educating and opening eyes. And another thing to think about is how many people convince you of something by telling you, nope, you can't have this, you can't talk about this, you don't get this is my little thing, get away, get away, get away. We need to stop doing that. We need to start looking at bigger words, at bigger ideas, bigger concepts, other than our own personal ideas, right? Because we're asking the politicians to do the same thing, right? We're saying, hey, think outside the box, think outside of your world, listen to me, learn, right? We need to learn from them too. Very, very important, something to think about. So again, like all social-minded change agents, we're dreamers. We're tunnel visioned. We see the world in a certain way and we can run through brick walls if we want to, right? But that can lead to blind spots. It's important for us to see, again, beyond ourselves. So again, users, builders, founders, again, they're running into a world that they weren't planning on. Hey, I just want to make this easier. I want to process something faster. Hey, I think this type of smart contract would be easier. Hey, it would be really great if we could just, break down barriers. Well, it doesn't, but they didn't think, hey, maybe World War II had some consequences, right? Like the UN, we all might not like it, every day, but it's there, right? The International Monetary Fund is there. The World Bank is there. We have to appreciate what we're running into and what we're running up against. It's really, really critical. Okay, so some common challenges. Definitely our ecosystem is being slowed by incumbent interests. Jeremy made such a great point on thanks for the memories, Amazon, right? But nobody knew what Amazon was 20 years ago, right? So in 20 years, it's going to be something else. Mm-hmm. Decentralized, leaders in industry, almost in our DNA, are having a hard time leveraging and talking with specific policymakers. We don't work for Goldman Sachs. We don't work for the people that they've known for hundreds of years. We're new. They're going to look at us suspiciously. That's what human beings have done for hundreds of thousands of years. So they're not going to stop anytime soon. So we should probably just get used to it, get a better argument, be more open-minded, right? Never stop, never give up. Another piece that, I talked to a lot of people. I've talked to thousands of companies, tens of thousands of constituents, and everybody asks me the same question. What do I do next, right? It's very complex, and it's almost complex on purpose, right? Because it's supposed to be, right? And if anybody tells you, just Jason's side angle, to get rid of the filibuster, don't approve it. Just keep the filibuster. We need things to be complex. We need it to be difficult to change certain things. Right? Sometimes if systems can change too frequently, it's hard for people to feel confident, it's hard for people to get buy-in, and you don't get long-term success, especially when it comes to policy. Like look at the Affordable Care Act, right? By hook or by crook, they got it through. Now we're still fighting about it. I mean, I could go down the list, the war in Iraq. I could go, down the line of quick, hasty policy decisions that didn't have long-term buy-in because they just tried to ram it through. Sometimes it takes time. Also takes bipartisan support, right? I've taken shots at Republicans, Democrats, Minnesotans, Wisconsinites, doesn't matter, right? It takes bipartisan support. Everybody plays a role here. Everybody has a seat at the table. Doesn't matter what color hat you wear, doesn't matter what party you vote for, you have a seat at the table, but you also need to win, right, all of those sides as well. And then in Minnesota, if you look, for example, it's basically 50-50 with a Democratic governor, right? So you have to have bipartisan support. So there's just so many opportunities. I just cannot believe it. And like I said, I know it's a little bit doom and gloom, but here's the thing. We are in the middle of a bull run. We are in the middle of it. Jeremy nailed it. We're in the middle of a changing time. It's absolutely critical for all of us to realize the opportunity we have today. We have presidents. We have governments. We have hundreds of thousands, millions of citizens putting their efforts and their money behind something. They believe something. Right? I talked to somebody once, they're like, oh, blockchain, it's just, like the spreadsheet. It's just, software. I'm like, can somebody show me this Excel spreadsheet initiative of Minnesota? I've never seen that, right? It's transformative. We have to appreciate that. So an idea that I've had, and I've hit Brandon up a couple of times on it, but something that I just want to throw out there, because this is what I talked about California and North Carolina earlier, is they did legislatively enacted working groups. It was industry, government, grassroots, people from all over the state work together to find ways to use blockchain or crypto technology at the government level, and then how government can support that in the ecosystem in the state. And California, for example, has just moved all their titling systems onto the blockchain. North Carolina, there's too many things to count. I mean, we just covered some of those things earlier today. Look at what Texas has done. Those are models that Minnesota should be looking at, right? And we're not saying, oh, well, North Dakota did it, so we should probably copy them. No, California, we're probably more like California culturally than North Dakota. So we should look to places that have done something similar to what we can do. And I think a blockchain working group is a great idea. Because there's literally unlimited opportunities. And we all know that. That's why we're here. Right? It's a beautiful night. That's why we're sitting here. Because there's unlimited opportunities, not only from the technology, right, but from our movement. So again, there's government, Web3, modernization use cases. Fancies speak for, hey, every couple of years the government needs to update their software, right? They should be using blockchain technology. There's a ton of states that are. Why isn't Minnesota doing it? We've talked to the state auditor. I've talked to the Department of Public Safety. There's opportunities in these modernization cases. Government records projects, whether you know it or not, the government sells your records. They sell your personal data every single day. I used to do it, and I have clients that do it right now. It should be on the blockchain. It should be protected. I think it's long overdue. A lot of states, again, California, West Virginia, New York's looking at it. New Jersey is looking at it. Wyoming is looking at it. There's a ton of states that are doing it. Minnesota should be on board. Again, we have a growing list of legislative champions, not only nationally, but here in Minnesota as well. It's nice to have somebody other than Tom Emmer that we can talk about that cares about the issue. And again, regulatory and government's role is to create innovation hubs. There's a movement across the United States to get states, especially with large rural areas, to have innovation hubs that can support ecosystems outside of just a metro area. Minnesota is a perfect candidate for this. This is beyond data centers. This is AI hubs. This is places like St. Cloud, Rochester, Duluth. We've got a great state set up here for something like this. This is something that we should absolutely be looking at. I think to a face, every person would agree rural development is absolutely critical in Minnesota 25 and beyond. I think, finally, some things that the blockchain working group or we as individuals or Minnesota Blockchain Initiative, again, can be focusing on. Things like funding. Governments fund some stupid things. Do you know how much money that light rail line cost? and how few people write it, how poor of a policy project that actually is. But we fund it. Actually have a good idea. We should be funding that one. Problem resolutions. Web3 is here to solve problems. We can use it to solve problems. Contracts. Again, there's government contracts already at the federal and other state level. We should be working to get government contracts here. Market entry. We need to be supportive of companies that want to come into Minnesota and build Web3 projects here. And we have to do that as an organization and as individuals. And then policy. It's the old thing. Call your congressman, call your senator, work with a group like this. You have to be active and engaged. If you care about this, put your money where your mouth is and stick your head again in the guillotine. It's okay, it's fun. Yeah, I tell this to everybody, it's not what your competition is doing, but what you're doing. That's what sets you apart. Who cares what the other person is doing? I'm never going to be Michael Jordan. I'm never going to be that good at basketball, right? But I'm going to try, or I'm not going to do it at all. So if we're going to do this, let's do this. Let's get going. Thanks, everybody.